2021, four men got together to make a radio show that nobody asked for. This is the result.
Welcome to Broad Street Radio. I'm Michael Morris with my buddy Stan Willis. Stan, how are you?
I'm great, and I'm not going to wave at the camera because you made fun of me last time, and I feel really self-conscious.
Stan, I will make fun of you for other things besides waving at the camera.
I feel really self-conscious. I think you should apologize.
I should apologize to you because you were right to wave at the camera. I forgot the camera was on. I should say the other three guys are not here. They're on their way to Winterfell to capture the Iron Throne. Since they're not here, I got to say, I just started watching that. I know everybody else watched that a long time ago. Spoiler alert, it's very violent and very rapey. What I wanted to talk about today is that, you all right, Nate?
Hold on, I think we're going to have to revive Nate.
Yeah, neither one of us knows how to do CPR, and Nate's dying over
If anyone knows CPR, please come to the studio.
Well, Bill, this isn't going to air for a few weeks, so he's going to be in trouble.
I guess that's true. Sorry, Nate. It's good to know you.
Yeah. Just hit stop when we're done.
The show must go on.
So what I wanted to talk about today, and I want to get this perspective because I find you to be a very worldly person, and I'm a guy that doesn't leave my house. Fair enough?
Okay.
So we're the yin and yang here.
Okay.
So I want to track back to last year.
I sit on the front porch a lot.
Yeah, but it's a screen-in porch, so I really am not exposed to the outdoors. I just look through the screen like this. So we look back on a year, pandemic's over. The thing that kept America running were these PPP loans. You could get these loans from the government to put into your business to keep America moving in the right direction. And Jim Biden, that president guy, he said, we're back. America's back. Mm-hmm. Well, I filled up my gas tank today and it was like $3.15. And Nate said a week ago he did it for $2.85. Now, at the airing of this show, probably going to be a couple weeks from now, it's going to be $9,000 to $11,000 a gallon. Fair? Okay. I want to talk about, was it a good idea for us as Americans to do the PPP, the extended unemployment, but when you have to pay the piper at some time down the road?
Well, I guess if you want to talk about that, you really there's a much greater extent of money being printed and going into the greater economy than just that. I mean, those are the things that everybody knows about. What everybody doesn't know about is the fact that I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but the repo market crashed in September of...
Was it 18?
I think it was 19. And since that happened, the Fed's basically been covering that shortage of billions of dollars every day. So that's money going into the economy, kind of propping up, these transactions that are happening behind the scenes that nobody really knows about. And then you have the helicopter money. Trillions of dollars of helicopter money is going out to people. And then you have the states of all extended unemployment. So every state is basically printing money by extending unemployment, make it easier to get. And some of them are starting. Ohio is starting to draw back on some of that now. And the feds did the extra, what was it, $300 or $400 a week?
I think it was $300
for everybody who was on unemployment, which I think that number bounced around between like 10 and 15 million people every week or every month or however often they count it. So, there are just literally trillions of dollars annually going into the economy that are just coming from nowhere.
Right.
It's just like, let's say this exists, boom, there it is. And at its heart, and I'm not an economist, and
they don't know that. Why the hell would you say that?
And I'm not an economist.
God damn it. Okay, go on. Keep going.
But I play one on TV. So, but like everybody else, I have an opinion, so I'm happy to give my opinion. Right. But you can't, the definition of inflation is essentially the money supply is increasing. And that is the definition of inflation. We're doing that. We're increasing the money supply mammothly, enormously. And you can't do that without there being some counter effect to it. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
you can't.
But that's what I'm getting to. You do have this boomerang situation because you have to eventually. The term or the phrasing I've heard is, "I'm not worried about it, but my grandkids, they'll be affected." Incorrect.
I don't think it's going to be that long.
Right. It's starting to creep in already.
You're already seeing. I mean, I think they say the food prices haven't gone up as much as I feel like they have, but like you go to a restaurant now, and I mean, in just for kicks and giggles, if you can go back and look at your credit card receipts, I mean, look at the same meal you had at the same restaurant last year in the same 2-week or month time frame and see how much more you're paying for it. My guess is probably 50% more, maybe more than that. And that's not because the restaurants want to make more money. That's because the food costs more. You go to the store and you look at especially meat prices and eggs, and you can't even find chicken. And all the prices are increasing. Gas prices are going through the roof. I mean, that's all partly because we're putting a lot of money into the economy.
Right. It's funny that you bring that up because I'm going to let people know the secret of how corporations put their hand right up your rear. After the housing crisis, obviously people didn't have money, right? So people had 2 and 3 homes. They lost all of them. They were overextended because the banks were saying, you got good credit. You can go ahead and buy these ninja loans, all that other stuff. So I meet with a friend of mine who was buying for, let's just call it a restaurant that rhymes with Lindy's. And they did a deal where they would have 79-cent, 89-cent, and 99-cent cheeseburgers. Okay. So what's your thought? Like, I can buy 4 of these for 69 cents. Now they're different sizes, right?
Right.
Different weight of the meat.
Right.
You know how they were able to do those deals and they could give back to you as the American citizen because you're going through a tough time? They changed the size of the bun.
Well, there you go.
So that your eyes looked at it and said, this thing goes from edge to edge like it always does. There's no difference. And then when you got it, it looked like a midget's thumb inside this bun. And it's like, no wonder I need 9 of these things to eat one, right? But when you're talking about food prices, Chipotle announced they're going to pay their people $15 an hour now.
Right.
And now their menu items are all going up. I think they said like 10%. There is for every cause, there is an effect.
Right.
So when you're looking at this, you're saying, am I going to get this mediocre bowl of somewhat Mexican food and stand in line at this trough to get this? Or am I going to get something else? Because now I love Chipotle. Don't get me wrong.
My kids are going to go to Chipotle.
Yeah, kids are.
And they're going to continue to go multiple times a day.
Yeah. But so if my daughter
and it doesn't matter if it costs $8,000 a bowl.
It's not going to make that big a difference for that end consumer that's like, that's
Right.
their behavior.
Right.
But if I'm going to Olive Garden, am I going to go once a month or am I going to go once a quarter? And I'm not picking on them. I'm going to use that as an example. Chain restaurants, I think, are going to get hurt worse because you're going to look at it as more of a, if I'm sitting down, there better be an event like a death, a wedding.
I mean, it's going to price at first. First of all, let's just say this level of inflation has been happening for a while. People are just now starting to talk about it because they're starting to notice. It's going to continue, but at first it'll be slow. I mean, and I still remember back in the late 70s when, they were. It was first it was slow, and my parents would complain about the prices a little bit, and then pretty soon it was like, no, we're not going anywhere to eat or anything,
Right?
Because it just costs too much. And so the way it'll be is it'll be slow, and then it'll increase and at a more rapid rate. But that's not the only thing that's playing into all this, because you have all these global supply chains that basically slowed down a lot during the. I hate to call it a pandemic, but that's what we're calling it apparently.
The scam-demic.
The scam.
Has anyone put that on a T-shirt? We should have scam-demic T-shirts.
T-shirt. Well, but everything slowed down except for You follow the money. You see the people who made money during the pandemic.
That poor Jeff Bezos kid,
Yeah.
his company owner went up 40%.
40%.
How are you going to survive on that? That guy's going to the moon.
I'm always a big fan of, if you want to know what the cause of something is, follow the money. And like 6 months in, the wealthiest people in the United States have made something like $586 billion.
Stan, are you saying right now that Jeff Bezos went over to a lab over there in China? Is that what you're saying? Because if he took the lid off of that box, is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that at all.
It'd be amazing if this economist told us that.
I'm just saying he's probably happy that it happened. I'm not saying he caused it to happen. I'm just saying he's enjoying the benefits. It's okay. I mean, I don't pick the apple tree, but I enjoy the apples, right? And just because they're $10 a bushel doesn't mean
$10. That's a deal.
$10 a bushel, and now they're going to be $10 a piece. It's okay.
But I see where you're going with that. But the other part that I'm curious about is when I'm talking to, especially a lot of small business people, and they'll say, "Well, how am I going to make it if a place like I'm trying to think of the Circuit Cities of the world? I know Circuit City was already in trouble, but the big box store,
right?
The problem with the big box store is it was already in trouble before this happened.
Right.
You're over leveraged, and the way I always say it is, it's kind of like a wheel. As long as this wheel keeps turning, and every day or every other day you're selling something,
right.
Your creditors are still going to get something. They're going to get the minimum payment." But when that stops altogether, chances are you weren't good at business to begin with. You were making enough to get by. You probably started making profit, and then you overspent thinking you're making it, and you didn't put money back in that business. So a lot of those businesses shouldn't even be here anyway. The PPP loans keep them going.
Well, to some extent, and the idea with the PPP loans were that if we keep the businesses going, then they keep people employed.
Right.
And that was one of the strings on the PPP loans. If you get this, you can't reduce your workforce or reduce the pay. You have to keep everybody employed at least the same pay rate. So to that extent, especially for small businesses, I think that the PPP loans were actually very valuable. There's like two different tracks of thinking here, because you have on the micro scale. If you're an individual and you're out of work and you've got 5 kids and you get $6,000 from the government because you're getting money for your kids and for yourself and your spouse, that's huge. That's enormous. That's like 2 months of subsistence and taking care of things at a time when you need help. And so that's beneficial. If you're a small business and you're 25% off because of people not going outside or doing anything because of COVID, and you get this PPP loan and you can keep your people employed and stay intact for a couple of months and get through it, that's enormously beneficial. I think for the bigger conglomerates, it's a little hard to see that because a lot of those bigger companies play accounting games.
Right.
And so it's a little harder to see the benefit. But I think on a micro scale, I think that these things I think they were good ideas and they were helpful. The problem is when you look on a macro scale, we couldn't afford to do what we did. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's, if you're thinking about your household and, your water heater dies, you want a water heater, but if you don't have the money to get a water heater, you don't get a water heater. Right. So what the federal government essentially did is say all of our appliances died, so we're just going to buy new ones.
Right.
And we don't have to worry about what cash is coming in because we're just going to buy new ones, and the money will come from somewhere.
Which is essentially what Americans did in the buying all those homes, from 2001 to 2007. At some point, somebody wanted their money, right?
Right. So I guess the point is, on a macro scale, if you do something that actually has benefit to everybody, but the long-term cost of that is greater, then it was a bad decision. And I guess that's the thing that I think that we weren't really paying attention to during this whole thing was, if we do this, it's going to be helpful on an individual level to people But in the long term, the damage that it's going to do, it could be far worse, because if by the end of this year, gas costs $10 a gallon and it costs $8 for a loaf of bread, which I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if that happens, then all that money that was printed will be gone very quickly,
Right.
because the price of consumer goods has gone up so much that people who were already at a subsistence level are going to be in trouble.
Well, you're still, no matter what happens, there's no more, I don't want to call it a handout, because again, I pay my taxes for two reasons. One, they asked me, and two, I think I'm contributing to those rockets that we blow up things with, and I just want my name on it. I just want credit for it.
What's your name on a rocket?
Yeah, I feel like I'm like that 15th kid on the team, like we won the
Mike
trophy.
Morris.
As this thing is, yeah, I want my name on it as it's searing across Gaza, and I want to be like, that was me. So that's why I pay my taxes, and you all should too, but I don't pay my fair amount. But what I am saying is I think that there are people that we pushed, like you were saying earlier, the wealthiest people in this country got more money out of this. Mm-hmm. We have taken say there was 3 levels to this game, the top, the middle, and the lower end. All we've done is push these middle class. Middle class now, I think, is defined as like $77,000 household income. And I looked at a chart yesterday. The average income for someone that's 39 to 40 years old in the last, say, 2014 to now is almost in the negative because of school loans. And I'm not defending school loans. I'm saying they aren't making enough to keep pace. So home ownership is going to be so much harder for you to do with banks being more restrictive because, again, they got bailed out during the Obama years. And then the banks tightened it up. During the Trump year or 4 years, the housing market went crazy. But I think people are forgetting that's not you and I buying homes. No. That's private equity firms buying homes. And now they're going to be your landlord. Right. The big, let's say, shadows out here that are making all this money they're buying all the monopoly board. And you can just lease the little house on it. Right.
Well, I mean, the wealthiest, like Bill Gates, for an example, Bill Gates is buying a farmland at a ridiculous rate.
Right.
I read that he had some like he has enough farmland that he has like in his holdings it's like 10% or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is. But he has a significant percentage of all the farmland in the United States because he's buying it up.
It's amazing. It's enough to hide a bunch of missing children on. So anyway, but I wonder how much of that his old lady's going to get in that divorce.
Well, I'm sure she'll get
Melinda Gates.
I'm sure she'll get half or something.
Wouldn't you love to be that attorney? To just start dividing up assets. So you get Ireland and the moon, and Bill gets to keep everything else. That's one. I can't wait till that settlement. That you could probably find that out, right? When that's done, you could find out what the numbers are. Could we report that and just embarrass him?
I would say that they will do things in such a way that there will be something released, but it won't be everything.
True. You're telling me the media is going to lie to us about that?
I don't think the media is going to lie. I think the lawyers are going to lie. I'm not saying.
I'm
not saying the lawyers are going to lie. I'm just saying that it won't be released in its entirety. Completely, it won't all make it.
If she really wants to hurt him, she could just like take all of his Transformers and all his nerd stuff. You know that guy's a nerd.
Well,
look at him.
Yeah, but and you know that I mean all the Jeffrey Epstein connections and stuff are coming out now. All this.
We have to say alleged, even though they were best friends and they knew what was going on.
I mean,
but if you say alleged, Nate, put a little thing in that says alleged. So if someone's just watching this at the gym or something, it's not alleged though. So.
I saw it on TV, so it has to be true.
It has to be true. As far as like the local business aspect, I mean, I'm sure that you guys, because you've done some bankruptcy cases for people, workers' comp, are you seeing on the local level that people just can't hire anybody? Every day I get a call where someone's like, I can't get anyone to come to work.
There are a lot of small businesses, mostly where I'm kind of seeing from my friends is the food industry.
Yeah.
It's having a really hard time finding people. And landscapers, I mean, people who hire a lot of
like contract work,
unskilled labor. Sorry, I have speech and
it's fine. That's what this show is.
It comes out every once in a while. I'm from Appalachia, so you know. But the good thing is I'm bilingual. I speak.
Oh, you speak two languages.
I speak Appalachian.
Sorry, you threw me off with that. Because you were making eyes at me earlier, and I'm like, whatever, bro.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, dude. You just
handsome. I get it.
But what I'm finding is people who have basically unskilled labor are having a really hard time.
But you would think that'd be the easiest. If I had to find something,
the problem is the price point. You know, typically, I think the poverty rate right now is hovering around 15,000 still a year for a single. I think that's probably too low. I think that probably the poverty rate's actually closer to 20,000. I mean, if you think about if you're a single person and you're trying to make ends meet and you make $20,000 a year, you're going to have a really hard time making ends meet as a single person.
And that's if you didn't go to college. If you went to college, you have no shot because if you have student loan or something. So
typically, double poverty is about the place where people start saying, okay, I feel like I have some money. And I feel like if the poverty rate's 15,000, so if you're making $30,000 a year, you're still going to have a hard time. I mean, by the time you pay, say, $800 a month for an apartment and $400 a month for a car, and then you have your utilities and everything else, you're going to have a hard time making ends meet at 30 grand a year. I think that 40 grand a year is probably the cutoff point now for when you can actually make ends
as a
meet.
Single person.
As a single
because
person.
That median income for a household is 77 for a middle class, so that fits.
Right. So I say all that to say, you know, that's $20 an hour. You know, 40 grand is roughly $20 an hour. Most of these people, restaurant industry and unskilled labor, they're not paying $20 an hour. They're paying 10, 11, $12 an hour. And you can almost make the equivalent of $30,000 a year staying home on unemployment.
Right.
So the reason those people are struggling is because they don't want to pay 40 grand a year to get somebody to come out. Because if they do that, then, I mean, if you're a restaurant and you've got to pay all of your staff the equivalent of 40 grand a year, you're going to be charging double what you're charging for food.
But that's what drives me crazy about lawmakers, that they've never had these jobs. And if they have, they made $4 an hour.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Joe Biden has been in...
Who's Joe Biden? I like to call him Jimmy Biden, because I'm not going to pay any attention to Joe Biden. He's done a lot of bad things. Jimmy Biden on my watch, nothing. But if you look at... So we talk about Chipotle pay $15 an hour. What people don't understand is I am an economist. If you take 10 people that work on different shifts and you pay them all $15 an hour, there's only so much money I can pass on to the consumer. But I have to do it because if you look at a P&L, I only have X amount built in for profit.
Right.
If I'm going to pay these people more, the consumer has to pay the back end of this. Right. If the consumer won't pay this, then I have to get rid of some of these people. So now out of my 10, I'm keeping 6, and guess what? You just have to work more.
Well, yeah, and ultimately what that means is small business owners are not going to have... I mean, most small businesses don't make that much profit. Most small businesses owners make a decent living, but most small business owners aren't.
They're not making a 33% margin in most cases. They're making a 25%, or if they're lucky, 20.
Or less.
So
so what happens is it's the intangibles of owning a small business. You know, you set your hours, you get to do your thing, get to be in control. Those are the kinds of things that make small business ownership attractive. But if you cut the profit margin significantly for small business owners, they're just going to quit,
right?
Because you can't. There's not enough money there for most small business owners to just continue indefinitely making money. Now, you know, the larger places, they need less profit because they're making, you know, they're doing the volume.
And they have tax loopholes and that kind of thing.
Well, right. But
I'm not saying that's a primary thing, but it does factor in. If you're an Amazon, there are different ways to get around it. So you can pay your people $15 an hour, but your corporate tax rate is 0.
But, you know, if I'm just average Joe and I own a restaurant, I need to make enough money off that restaurant to run my life.
Right.
Right. So I really need this to be profitable. If I'm a conglomerate that owns Olive Garden, I don't need to make as much off of any one restaurant in order to make the money that it takes for me to run my place. So I think I think it just hurts the small businesses a lot more, this whole thing that we've created here. And I think as prices go up, it's going to be the small businesses that suffer the most from it.
I think in the when I say long run, I always think a year or two out. I think most people are thinking 30 years out. That we're seeing in a short term that as people are going back, and I still have people every day, I'm not going back. I want to work from home. They're going to call you back. Right. So when they do, like a lot of people have been able to work remotely, but they're going to want you back because you're under their thumb. And you go through, let's say it's in a sales organization, your sales have slumped. So you've got to beat what you did last year, but you have to get back to where you were 2018, 2019.
Right.
Most people aren't suited for sitting at home because you can turn on the TV or get on your internet or whatever, like I do all day. And you're not able to function unless you're part of that unit, that team, and someone's got to be on you to keep cranking in sales. I think you're going to see a lot of people over the age of, say, 40 to 45, that they finally realize what it's like when that wheel stops and like, oh, I really enjoy my life. You're part of a cog and they want you back. But the problem is those people would have said, I'll do it on my own. To run your own business now, to start it now, would be a next to impossible task because the cost of everything is so high. You can't do it cheaper than anybody else, especially as a startup. The time to start it would have been 08, 09.
Right.
But if you're older, I feel a little bit bad for those people that you didn't bet on yourself when things were high.
Right.
Because you could have learned to come through this. Now you're kind of stuck in that corporate job till you're 50 some years old.
Well, yeah.
Or dead.
And, the question. So the fear with what we're doing here is that this is a spiral.
Call it a death spiral. That sounds so much better.
This is a death spiral. This is a grand vortex, space hole, whatever they call black hole.
Oh, so much better. I like that.
Yeah. So the fear is that, so we have inflation. Inflation causes prices to go up, which means the money that everybody has is worth less. So you then have to increase wages in order to get people enough money to buy what they need. So when you do that, you make businesses suffer and cause some of those to go out of business, which then creates less competition, which aids in helping prices to go up. Plus, you're putting more money into the system, which is inflation, which causes prices to go up, which makes more people suffer. And so it drives wages up. So eventually it's just keeps getting out of control. And then you end up like Venezuela where everybody's a millionaire, but everybody's poor.
Right. And that's, listen, as I just want to quote Stan Willis, he said, "The American dream is dead." That's been Broad Street Radio for this week, and we'll see you next week.